My name is Delphine Serumaga. I'm the country representative for UN Women in Zimbabwe. When I got into university, my interest was around women in developing countries and what they go through. And after graduation, my first serious job was with a women's shelter. This was in Canada, because I graduated when I was in Canada from university. I realized that I was on the wrong side of the issue, because I was in Canada that was receiving refugees who were coming from refugee camps, people who were running away from their own countries to address particular issues. So at this point I decided I need to get back on the African continent. It doesn't matter where, it's on the African continent. I need to deal with the issue in terms of resolving and prevention rather than catching people who are already in a difficult position. I've always wanted to work for the UN, but I think I needed to go through a journey of self-realization as well as being ready to be where I am now. So I'm proud to say that I came in, my first job being a representative in a very interesting country like Zimbabwe, and I'm really enjoying it. And I think I'm in the right place at the right time, right age. Well, I think it's the foremost important thing, to be honest, because the women's movement is the voice of what women's concerns are. If you don't hear it from them, you can't make it up, you know, and you have to actually understand what women want and where they want to go. So in terms of the women's movement as a whole, I think as a movement itself, it has its own struggles, finding its space, but it also has a backlash, or if not a backlash, an opposing tension. And so in the position that we hold, for example, as UN Women, I think it's really important that we help with that tension. We help with the reduction of that tension, help with placing the women's movement in a particular position, because we have doors that we can enter that you don't necessarily find women's movements, especially at national level, to be able to walk through. Being the conduit between the government or the state and the women's movement. Women's movement is part of civil society, a big part of a population, helping them package their voice in such a way that they can be heard and not be stereotyped, disregarded, and assumed to be not a relevant point because we're still dealing with poverty. So infusing the issues of the women's movement in what may be the priorities of a country is the importance that I see. And if we don't do it through the women's movement, we are assuming a voice that doesn't really belong to us as individuals or as an institution. So I think it's a very important part of our strategy. Secondly, as UN Women, we were born through the women's movement, which is a very powerful bit. And because of that, I think we need to respect that space as a powerful space with a voice to be heard. I mean, we did an assessment during the drought where we found that women were walking 80 miles to go and to get another job so that they could bring food to the community. Or they were working extra hours to go and get water, or extra hours to go and get firewood. So their time use was even worse than it was before. They were exposed to wild animals, they were exposed to vulnerabilities such as sexual favors in order to get away with collecting firewood in a forest, because the government doesn't let you collect firewood in that forest. So we brought in those dimensions to the government surveys, and so they could rethink how they were planning in terms of response for women and women's needs. So we play a role in the humanitarian responses when it's, you know, a climate crisis, but we also have the longer term vision to work with issues of seeding, working with issues of, you know, distribution by WFP on their food, and also working with issues with FAO when it's doing seed distribution, and also teaching women and men how to farm, and bringing the correct ingredients around a woman or a woman's community so that they can have sustainability.